What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video. And today we are talking about a very specific question that I see asked a lot in composing circles and songwriting groups. And it's one I've struggled with myself as well. And that is exactly how to create a B section to our piece of music. Because a lot of people think, it's really easy to create a hook or a melody, right? And then flesh it out into its completed phrase and therefore its own section, like A section, right? But how do we actually create a complementary section, a B section, that enhances the overall experience but doesn't detract from it and make it feel like it's a completely detached piece of music that's connected to the first section? And that's definitely a fine balance I want to share with you in today's video. I'll give you a couple of steps to follow to hopefully view this composing problem in a new light. So before we really dive in though, in case you are writing your own music and you want a step-by-step framework to follow to ensure that you're creating the best results from your music, I want to give you a totally free guide called the Ideal Composing Workflow. So this 4-step process is what I personally follow every single time to go from my initial idea to a completed piece of music every single time. And it's repeatable, it's very easy to follow, and I hope it gives you a very clear framework for your own music when you're working on your productions. So definitely check it out. It's the first link in the description box below. You can download it totally free as my gift to you. And it's meant as an accompanying guide whenever you're writing a new piece of music. And yeah, hope it gives you some clarity and some encouragement. So without further ado, let's kind of dive in. Let me just play a quick example of my piece here called Love's Rapture. I'm just going to play the main theme. Then I'm going to show you the B section, and then I will kind of break down how I interpreted the B section, how I came up with those ideas, and hopefully that gives you some insights. So this is the A section going into the B section. This is the end of the A section. Now this is the B section coming up right here. That's the end of the B. And then the A section comes back to round out the piece. So there you go. You can hear how well, in my opinion anyway, the A section kind of establishes the main theme, the main hook. And then after that ends, that phrase feels complete. So it could be the end of the piece. But the B section then takes over and it almost feels like an expansion to the A section rather than just something that has to be there, if you know what I mean. I think that comes down to a couple things. So I'm going to select my piano track so you can hear these notes here. The first step I think we should consider is how different do we actually want the B section to be? So it's always a give and a take, because in this case, I decided I wanted to keep the key the same. So we're in the key of F major, and the theme actually starts on the F chord, and then we go up to the first inversion to the 4 chord, right? So this progression right away gives us a sense of stability because we're starting on the 1, then we're going to the 4. Then we explore a little bit, we go to the 6, 5, 4, back to the 5 before we go back to the 1. So if you think about it, it's quite a traditional based chord progression, starting from the tonic, then going to like the subdominant, the dominant, and so on. But in the B section, if I just repeat that same thing, it's going to sound repetitive and a little bit static and boring, right? So in this case, I actually decided to switch up the chord progression altogether, but keep the key or the tonality of F major the same. So I actually started on the 4 chord in the bridge here, or in the B section. So I started on the 4 chord, and then I went to the 5, to the 6, and then the 2, the 6 actually, and then the 2, 5, 1. So I kind of went to a circle of fifths type of chord progression to then resolve back to the tonic. So let's have a quick listen to that. So this is the 1 chord at the end of the A section. Then we rise up. This is the 4 chord, right? So it feels more suspended now. 5, and then the 3 chord to the 6, down a fifth to the 2, down to up to the 5, and then back down to the 1, right? And the second half of the B section kind of starts in the exact same way. Starts on the 4 chord, but then we go to the 5, secondary dominant of 6, going to 6, and then we get another chord here, G7, which is the 5 of the 5, okay? Anyway, the idea here is that in this piece specifically, I decided to keep the key the same, but I changed the chord progression and I also changed the melody as a result. I also changed the orchestration and the arrangement a little bit because previously in the A section, it was all strings and the violins in the melody, right? But to create that sense of contrast, I then used, I think it was flute doubled with oboe or English horn in the B section to carry the melody. So it's not only a musical difference, but also an orchestration difference as well. Another thing you could do though is changing the key altogether. So in classical periods, they establish the home key, usually that let's say it's a major key, let's say C major. Then in the B section, they'll go up to the dominant key, G major, and they'll repeat that same theme, but because it's in a different key, it feels different. So that's another way to create that contrast in the B section, is to keep the melody the same or maybe have slight variation, but then change the key, change the tonality altogether by going up to a different tonal center. The third option literally is just to change everything altogether. This is a little bit more risky because you do risk the listener feeling that both sections are just not connected together. But maybe if you keep the same rhythm, keep the same BPM, keep the same instrumentation, and then change up the key and the musical material altogether, that could work. I would just generally recommend going back to the A section one more time at the very end, whether that's in the original key or in the new key that you decide. Because that will feel like it's reuniting, right? It's bringing the original idea back to the very end. So it's like a beginning, middle, and end, where the middle part is the development, the B section that goes away and does something different and then comes back at the very end to tie things up beautifully. So there's 3 kind of different approaches you can take there. Number 1, again, is to keep the same key, but change up the harmony, change up the melody itself so it feels interesting. Number 2 is to keep the melody and the harmony relatively similar, but switch up the key itself, the tonal center. And number 3 is to change up both of those things altogether. So the A and B sections basically sound completely separate, but maybe keep the A at the very end, let it come back so it feels like it's reunited and it's brought back, and it feels like a whole thing being brought back together, which can feel really, really nice. So my personal preference most of the time is to keep the same tonality, keep the same key for the B section, because I just I guess it depends on your personal approach to composing as well. Like for me, certain keys feel right for a certain piece of music. So for this particular love theme, I felt that F major was the perfect key for this musical material. And I didn't want to deviate from that. So that kind of influenced my approach for the B section, right? I knew that I wanted to keep it all F major, so I would have to change up the chord progression and change up the melody. But if you don't really care about that, and if you're more fluid between different keys, like you want to go from the major to the relative minor to the chromatic median, whatever you want to do, then you, of course, have more flexibility there in how you handle your melody and harmonies in the B section. So just keep these things in mind. There's no right or wrong, but it does come down to the listening experience. And always think about it from the perspective of the layperson. Like when they're listening to your music, can they understand it and comprehend it in an easy manner? I always try to write my music so that when the listener goes away after listening to it, they feel like a story has been told. It feels cohesive. It feels warm. It feels just nice, overall. But if your approach is different, then you of course may write differently than I do, of course. So everyone's approach is a little bit different, but these are just my personal preferences when it comes to writing a B section. You notice I keep the tempo the same, the overall BPM and everything was very, very similar. I did change up the orchestration slightly again to enhance that contrast, but overall the key remained the same. The BPM was the same. And then I only changed the melody and the harmony to create that sense of contrast between the A and the B. Let me know what you think. If you write in a more structured approach like ABA or ABBA, or maybe you don't even think about structure all that much. How do you create the separation between your ideas, like your initial themes and then your follow-up themes? How do you kind of differentiate those? Let me know in a comment below. And again, if you're interested in my personal composing process a little bit more, and you want to see how I go from start to finish, from my initial idea to my completed master, then I want to give you that free guide called the Ideal Composing Workflow. It's super didactic, super valuable, and very practical. So if you follow those steps, use it as a framework, I have no doubt that it will make the composing process just so much simpler and so much easier for you. And at the end of the day, isn't writing music with ease all we want, right? I think it's super important to have a workflow that really suits you and one that you really enjoy, honestly. So I want to give that to you totally free. Just click the first link in the box below and it'll take you straight there where you can grab it right away. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.